deliver as a justice of this court, and perhaps any court at all in this lifetime. We begin the second stage, the special ceremonial sitting. In tribute to a distinguished jurist, all of us on this bench are proud to call a colleague and brother who has made an indelible mark in our judiciary and nation. This gathering is more than a formal farewell ceremony. It's a moment of collective reflection on a distinguished career and what it means to serve in the highest echelons of the judiciary. The Constitutional Court is no ordinary court. It is the custodian of our democracy, the final bastion of justice, and the embodiment of the hopes and dreams of millions of South Africans and everyone who lives in this country. To serve here is to breathe life into a constitution born from great struggle and sacrifice, and to ensure that its promises are not just words on paper, but lived reality for all, to bear the weight of history. And Justice Madlanga has rendered this service and carried this immense responsibility with absolute distinction. Justice Madlanga's career is not just a chronicle of personal achievement, it's a tale of how one individual's dedication to justice can shape the destiny of a nation.
His family survives entirely on public assistance. His only assets are the clothes he wears, some essential household goods, and a couch in storage. This man desperately seeks to file for bankruptcy, including discharge of the debt he owes to his former employer, so that he and his family can make a new start in life. Due to his poverty, however, he cannot afford the filing fee, which you describe as the filing fee as comparable to the revenue stamp that was used to be required when filing summons or an application. He cannot pay it as a lump sum. He cannot pay it in installments. He cannot borrow money to pay it. He is utterly without options. Close quote. I say this is an epic definition of diversity because in this article you grapple with diversity. And you have brought that in this court. And diversity not because of race or class only, but because diversity means the accommodation of different modernities and different epistemic traditions into a court. And you bring that not because you bring your race, because you bring the spirit of your village, of your township. It would not be diversity if you didn't do what you've done so well in the past decades, which is to bring to this court not your race only, not your gender, but the epistemic paradigms of your people in the village. Because diversity would mean nothing. Would mean nothing if the new assimilated into the cognitive traditions of the old. All we would be is just a group of people, different colors and genders, but all swallowed in Eurocentric approaches of ways of being and ways of seeing. And you have brought that. You have brought to this court something we will be proud of. Dissent, frowned upon by many. But Pius Langa told us that the world was moved by those who dissent, the lone voices. And we as the Pan-African Bar Association appreciate what you've been to this court. We hope that your retirement, which is usually splendid solitude, for one to do the things they have not been doing, for one to reflect, and for one to seek forgiveness for errors that they've made in the stormy ways of life, and sometimes to seek purgatory before they go to heaven. Well, I don't know about you and splendid solitude. You're standing right now at the feet of the beast into whose belly you're about to jump. But your qualities that we celebrate today will stand you great. Those qualities of humility, the ability to listen to others. Most of us like the fact that in this court, in you and others, We found people with our common epistemic backgrounds who could see when we were upset, who could sympathize with us, and we were not invisible to them. You loved the poor, you worked for them, because poverty is not the absence of resources and money, it's the absence of dignity, being invisible to those who dominate the discourse. Lastly, I want to say to you, Mkhulu, you may not be religious, but I know Mbuyiseli. I want to close with a quote by Winfrey Phipps for you, which says this: "It is in the quiet crucible of your personal private sufferings that your noblest dreams are born, and God's greatest gifts are given in compensation for what you've been through." And with those words, I want to thank you, Nohatebe, and everyone, Nosisi, and everybody, because in you we saw a reimagined South African with an ability to unlearn wrong things that we were taught about each other. We want you to hambe kahle, and please fight the beast that in whose belly you are about to jump. Thank you.
Public officials, and every citizen committed to constitutional democracy. Judge Madlanga, you have reminded the nation and those in power that independence is not a luxury, it is a constitutional necessity. We continue to advocate for the NPA's financial and operational independence, which the Minister is supporting and addressing, and this is a strategic imperative which most likely resonates with the judiciary. I know Judge Zondo definitely, which has pursued its operational independence for several years and which has advanced most significantly under the current minister. In ensuring that justice is served and the rule of law, which is a pillar of our constitutional democracy, is strengthened, the prosecution does not act alone. It requires that the entire system works and that justice and accountability wins at the end of the day. And in this, the judiciary plays a critical and pivotal role. This was very recently illustrated by the decision of the Supreme Court of Appeal in State versus Tabete and others, the so-called Nulane case, one of the first state capture matters that the NPA prosecuted. In brief, as this august House will recall, the High Court judgment in this matter resulted in the acquittal of the accused. The court arco claiming in one of its many scathing comments that the prosecution had committed a comedy of errors. Following the judgment, the NPA's reputation was trashed by clickbait-happy journalists and analysts. 6 weeks ago, the SCA overturned this judgment. It found some of the court's ARCO's findings to be baffling, irrational, and inexplicable. It regarded the acquittal of the respondents to be unfair to the prosecution and a decision that compromised the administration of justice. Put differently, and drawing from your judgment this morning, Judge Madlanga, the trial court failed in its duty of proper consideration. Such decisions have a devastating impact on the rule of law, which you hold so dear, and many of the justices present, if not all. The SCA judgment has somewhat restored the confidence in the rule of law. As prosecutors, we rely on the firm resolve of an independent judiciary to ensure that cases move swiftly through our courts, whilst ensuring a fair trial. Fair not just for the accused, but also for victims and witnesses. And in the case of corruption, the country is the victim. In your important final judgment this morning, Judge Madlanga, you once again emphasized the importance of a fair trial. Both our apex court and the SCA have pronounced on this, holding that fairness is not a one-way street, conferring an unlimited right on an accused to demand the most favorable treatment, but it also requires fairness to the public, as represented by the state. This does not mean that the accused's right should be subordinated to the public's interest in the protection and suppression of crime. However, the purpose of a fair trial provision is not to make it impracticable to conduct a prosecution. We've heard much about your efforts in training and empowerment, Judge Madlanga, and I want to thank you for participating in the NPA training that we organized with the Bar Council. You were kind enough to participate and provide guidance on how prosecutors need to be meticulous and objective in decision-making, and which was particularly insightful, given that you yourself are a former prosecutor. As you conclude your term, Judge Madlanga, you do so with immense gratitude of the nation. You have contributed to the protection of our institutions, which you will continue in your work as the chair of the upcoming Commission of Inquiry into Criminality, Political Interference and Corruption in the Criminal Justice System, which will become known as the Madlanga Commission. The criticality of this commission cannot be overstated. Corruption and unethical conduct has infected too many corners of our institutions in the criminal justice system. Also oversight bodies and the very structures meant to protect us. As it is said, in every crisis there's an opportunity. And I would urge that the Commission does not wait until the end of its work to refer matters for criminal investigation, which will help us clean up our institutions and rebuild them to properly serve the people of our country. We need to rebuild the social compact where trust is restored, corruption is rejected, and we all play a part to create a safer, fairer society. On the behalf of the NPA, Judge Madlanga, I want to thank you for everything, for all your contributions. On behalf of the people of South Africa, you've given us powerful jurisprudential foundation to build upon, and your legacy will continue to be a guiding light. I thank you.
Just under 60 judgments, overwhelmingly, your judgments are either unanimous or command the majority. The judgments relate to many of the weighty issues the court has pronounced upon in our constitutional democracy, such as the implications of the Constitution for contract law and for marriages concluded under customary law, the duty of Parliament to facilitate public participation in legislative processes, the constitutional privilege for free speech and immunity from arrest of members of Parliament, the obligation of the IEC to record voters' addresses on the voters' roll, the entitlement of candidates to stand for election to public office without being attached to a political party, the constitutional right of a farm worker, Ms. Daniels, to effect improvements to her modest home to make it habitable in the absence of the landlord on the landowner's concern. This judgment, Justice Madlanga, graphically describes the pain, indignity, and injustice of land disposition in South Africa, an open wound that occupies the center of our constitutional democracy today. Justice Madlanga carried out his responsibilities with the understanding that our country has a past which was characterized by injustices that have shaped our present and will continue to shape South Africa's realities for a foreseeable future.
He was appointed as the Chief Evidence Leader for the Marikana Commission of Inquiry. These various roles equipped him with a broad perspective on the law and a keen understanding of the challenges facing our society. From landmark judgments on property and land rights to decisions on governance and accountability, from safeguarding gender equality and family rights to streamlining our democratic processes. During his tenure on this court, Justice Madlanga has significantly shaped the legal landscape of our nation. A golden thread running through his judgments is an unequivocal commitment to placing the constitutional ideals of human dignity, equality, transformation, and access to justice at the forefront of the law. Chief Justice, you've dealt with some of Justice Madlanga.
Good morning, Chief Justice of the practicing profession present here. I stand here on behalf of the Black Lawyers Association, an organization that today is proud to stand before this court to offer its well wishes to Justice Madlanga. I stand here, Chief Justice, to join all other fraternal structures and members of the profession to bid farewell to the colorful life and colorful legal career of Justice Madlanga, who marks his last sitting in the Constitutional Court today by delivering a judgment on a long-standing dispute concerning the law of intellectual property between Mr. Nkosana Makate and Vodacom. The BLA was established in 1977, as we were told, to fight against injustices of the apartheid regime, which also manifested itself in the courts of our republic. And in this regard, I wish to recognize former DCJ and one of the founding members of the BLA, Museneke DCJ. It is a proud moment to address you during this gathering, and all other former Chief Justices. That system saw black and white lawyers sitting separately in the courts of our republic, in sections that were called Europeans and non-Europeans. That system required black lawyers who were practicing in the city to vacate their offices and leave town after a certain time. I mention these things, Chief Justice, to display a long road we have traveled as a society to see days like this in our lifetime. In 1994, our country obtained freedom or democratic rule through democratic elections. This freedom gave birth to this court, for which you are now living, Justice Madlanga. You join a galaxy of esteemed black lawyers. I say, and I mention Charles Colson, CJ, Ismail Mahomet, Museneke DCJ, as he then was, Pius Langa, Chief Justice, Sandile Ngobo, Chief Justice, Judge Skweyiya, Toli Madala, and many others who have made an immense contribution to the jurisprudence of our republic and this court. We salute you for the contribution you have made to the profession and to the jurisprudence of our country. Your work is well recorded in the judgments and law reports for future generations to consume and learn. This is how we will remember you as you head towards retirement as the BLA. I'm not going to take myself through a painful road of quoting some of your judgments, because those are well recorded. I'm also aware that you can't critique judgments of this court. As you leave this court, Justice Madlanga, let's remember that Section 38 of the Constitution remains a key element of the South African Constitution's transformative agenda. Our people still live in squalor. Our people have no water. They have no roads. They have no access to health facilities. They have no access to better education. They have no adequate housing. We are longing to see the days of S versus Makwanyane, Grodboom, Subramani in this court. That is what we are longing for, especially as the BLA, that this court must return to that era and live up to Chapter 2 through Section 38 of the Constitution.
Your commitment to justice will be remembered and cherished by all. You carried your work without seeking acclaim or to advance selfish ends. You have, without any shadow of doubt, over the years discharged your judicial duties and functions with distinction. In your pervasive career serving the judiciary, you have wielded both flanks of the judicial system with skill and benevolence. Your judgments reflect a deep understanding and encyclopedic knowledge of the widest range of our laws. In the matter of Daniels in particular, it was an Esther-related matter. This court acknowledged the need to balance the occupier's right to security of tenure and human dignity with the owner's property's right. And since this judgment, some Esther occupiers, without prior consent to engage meaningfully with owners or persons in charge of the land, have improved or erected new structures where they live. Those who know you appreciate the ferocity of your work ethic, your keen eye for detail, and the thoroughness of your approach. Your judicial method left no stone unturned. Your commitment to imparting knowledge of skills to legal practitioners throughout the country is something that, as the National Association of Democratic Lawyers, we are appreciative of. How can I forget your commitment to imparting skills to Free State practitioners by accepting an invitation to give constitutional litigation seminar in Bloemfontein in 2019. This is a demonstration of your commitment to ensure that legal practitioners are upskilled. South Africa's history is marked by a struggle against oppression and injustice. Today, we should reflect on the profound journey of justice and democracy in South Africa. Our nation's history is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the relentless pursuit of equality and freedom. As NADEL, we remain committed to the transformation agenda and the vision set out in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. We affirm our adherence to the principles of non-racialism, non-sexism, freedom, democracy, equality, justice, and fairness. NADEL, on behalf of all those whose lives have been and will be touched and inspired by you, expresses deepest gratitude to you for your service, leadership, and unwavering commitment to justice. We wish you a retirement filled with joy, fulfillment, and well-deserved relaxation. May your distinguished legacy endure the generations to come as a source of inspiration for all. The jurisprudence of this court is richer for your efforts. With those few words, thank you.
Advocate Nhlapo Merabe of the General Council of the Bar.
Chief Justice Maya, Acting Deputy Chief Justice Madlanga, Justices of the Constitutional Court, with your leave, may I incorporate. For the first part commenced in 1996, when in our toddler democracy, Justice Madlanga was elevated to the bench at 34 years of age, making him the youngest member of the South African judiciary at the time. Phase 2 was when destiny brought him back to the Constitutional Court in 2013, because one cannot escape greatness when it has been bestowed upon them. His incisive and cutting-edge judgments bear testament to this, such as the Bwanya versus Master of the High Court and Helen Suzman Foundation versus the Judicial Service Commission, to mention but a few. The General Council of the Bar of South Africa, the GCB, will eternally hold Justice Madlanga in high esteem for his intellectual and academic prowess. The GCB noted approximately 3 years ago, in 2022, that a majority of the judgments penned by Justice Madlanga, at the time there were 21 and the number has since risen, has enjoyed unanimous concurrence, a further testament to his excellence in leadership and, dare I say, persuasive skills. In addition to all these attributes, Justice Madlanga holds an important judicial philosophy. On 27 August 2020, when he was interviewed on an online platform titled Anchored in Law, Justice Madlanga, and when asked how he would describe his judicial philosophy, Justice Madlanga replied that it is a philosophy deeply rooted in justice or a sense of justice. He acknowledged that the law does not always coincide with justice, but a judge should move or be motivated by doing justice between person and person. When responding to what would be his most significant contribution to the law and pursuit of justice in his 2022 JSC nomination, Justice Madlanga's response was, and I quote, "I truly contend when at the conclusion of a matter, I feel justice has been done. I say this not as a cliche, because even if our approach to the law cannot be faulted, not everything we do has just outcomes. The law does not always coincide with justice. I believe that I have an instinct for what is justice, and that is what motivates me in my exercise of the judicial function. Many times, that intuitive reaction has helped make a difference and bring about just outcomes where it matters most. And that is in the lives of the vulnerable and marginalized. This, Justice Madlanga, is the legacy that you leave us with. That where justice can and should prevail, it must. From the General Counsel of the Bar, Ndlelanhle, Khadebe, Bungani, Zikode, Gobizembe, Makhulukhulu, Enkosi, thank you.
I shall now call upon Dr. Chabedi SC of the Legal Practice Council to come forward and deliver their tribute.
Not Dr. Chief Justice. It got, yes.
Who were not speakers, but only the program directors. And also of Justice Kolapen, who proposed the toast. Hearty thanks, my dear colleagues. Mandi, you did the same today, and I have no idea how you did so. The two moving speeches were not identical, and yet they were quite substantial. I am not ashamed to say publicly that today you brought tears to my eyes. Anybody who was looking would have seen me shielding my eyes with my hand. To you, Minister, and all other speakers of today, if only I had 1,000 mouths, I would be able to say a much better thank you. My one mouth is simply not enough to thank you. In my language, let me say in the Swahili milomo, yanga ngeili waga. Let me say this to Advocate Moses Kakane SC. This comes from religious text. You seemed to doubt that I'm a believer. Yesterday, I thanked veteran attorneys who, through a steady flow of briefs, helped establish our practices and mold us young practitioners into the lawyers we eventually became. One such veteran attorney to whom I must extend words of gratitude is Dumisa Zebeza, who was an attorney then, but is senior counsel now, and a justice of the African Court on Human and People's Rights. He cared for our growth. He went out of his way to make sure that that became a reality. Now, my chambers. Over the years, I have had many law clerks. I see some of them there. What a wonderful lot of brilliant, highly intellectual, challenging, engaging, tolerant people who would very politely tell me sometimes that my reasoning was nonsensical. Team MRM, as I call them, you made my work so much lighter. You helped infuse quality in whatever I produced. I say you were tolerant because I am a hard taskmaster. I would give you deadlines that were sometimes near impossible to meet. You always did your utmost under most challenging circumstances. I would give you instructions at the oddest early hours of the morning, sometimes saying, give me your responses when you arrive at work. To my surprise, you would sometimes respond during those crazy hours. Many, many, many thanks to you. And now, the executive assistant, who before that title was my PA for many years, Usbongile Dube, whom I call Sbo. Sbo, I will miss your fussing over me. I will miss the way you babysat me in and outside of the chambers. Whenever I would be going on assignments outside of chambers, Sbo would go ahead of me to make sure that I would arrive to a welcoming environment. And sometimes she would embarrass me by making demands on the people who would be receiving me and say, do you have a holding room for the acting Deputy Chief Justice? Do you have this? And so on. Of course, it was well meant. Sbo, you have been the best PA and executive secretary I could ever have wished for. Sbo is known by every member of my family, and she also knows all of them. My children love her, and they call her Mama. 2 days ago, one of them said, Dada, we must organize a party for Uma Musbongi. You can't just part ways without a party for her, close quote. Ubonga kakhulu, kakhulu kakhulu Sbo, nangamso ngesintu. To my family, I thanked you yesterday, but let me, in one word, do so again and say I am truly grateful to have you as my family and as my support structure. Thank you very much. And let me address myself directly to my Auntie Wam, who is the last born child in my mother's family. Auntie, you are our only remaining parent, our only mother, and you play that role. Thank you very much, Auntie. And where did it all start? The Chief Justice mentioned it. She actually quoted me on what I said about how I came to study law. It started with my parents, in particular, my father, who directed me in the direction of studying law. It was a good direction, I think, because I think if he was still alive, he would have been very proud of the achievements that I have managed to attain. Likewise, my late dear mother, she also was a very important support structure in my formative years, and indeed even in my later years. Nurturing, loving. So without those beginnings, without that kind of growth under her, without the values that she instilled in me and my siblings, I doubt that I would have become the person that I became. So I'm truly grateful to my parents as well. I might add that probably my father sent me in the direction of law because even though he was not a lawyer at all, no legal training whatsoever, he was somewhat of a lawyer. He was a school principal. And about the lawyering, he really enjoyed attending imbizos, where cases would be heard by the entire community. And that is how he too would participate. Those that were on the other side and not supporting his argument were always in trouble because his submissions at those imbizos always ensured that the side he was on won. I remember one occasion, a new headman in our village was against my father in a land dispute in our area. And as usual, my father won the dispute. And he went to that headman and said to him, if you want to be a good leader in this community, you must lean on this shoulder. And he patted himself on the shoulder. That was Ubud Vuyani Makaula, our then headman. He's late now. From that day, Ubud Vuyani indeed took my father's counsel on many issues, and they became friends. Something else that also demonstrates that with him there was this instinct that was very akin to how a lawyer would act. If we, as children, had done something wrong, and it was not quite clear who exactly was in the wrong. My father, I said yesterday that we were upwards of 20, just the children, not his only, well, we were only 6 at home. He would line us up and hear the case of each one of us. You would have to defend yourself in front of him. And if he was satisfied with your defense, he would say, okay, stand aside, stand aside, stand aside. And those who did not have cogent defenses would get chastisement. So instinctively, my assessment, but of course this is something that I did this in later years, I think it was that instinct, that love for law that he had, that he then directed me to become or to study law. I am very, very grateful to both my parents. And lastly, let me say that I am very happy to have been part of an institution that has been responsible for first creating the constitutional jurisprudence of this country and continuing to grow it over the years. I can only hope that in that process I have played my fair share. Well, I believe that I have, because the speeches from yesterday and today suggest that I did. Thank you very much.
Acting Deputy.
Importantly, in the main, but remain for determination in the appeal are factual questions that do not ordinarily fall for